Welcome to Bahasa Indonesia, Idioms and Expressions Part D. Jadul, short for zaman dulu, in the old times, in the olden days. There are three different ways of saying no in Indonesian. Tidak, or even shortened to tak, and enggak, and ndak. And enggak is very common. Probably the most common way of saying it is enggak. You hear things like, mau enggak? Would you like it or not? Do you want it or not? Ngerti enggak? Do you understand or not? Do you understand or don't you? And they use that all the time. In colloquial Indonesian, in the mert form of the verb, we quite often drop the mert. For instance, we take the word arti and we make the verb form out of it, the mert form, it becomes mengerti. It's the only example I know where the root word is actually changed. So you get mengerti, and then they drop the mert and it becomes ngerti, ngerti. It's a little bit difficult for a lot of Western people to pronounce the words that start with ng. Good to practice it, because there are quite a few words in Indonesian. Kan is short for bukan, and it's at the end of a sentence. It means like, well, don't you? Are you? Is he? Aren't I? Gitu bukan? Gitu kan? Isn't that so? Kurang ajar. How rude. Kurang ajar. It's when a person does something rude or you're calling them rude. Kurang ajar or kurang asem is another way of saying it. Cengeng, a person who is overly sentimental, cries at the drop of a hat. Cengeng. Pribumi. Pribumi is a native Indonesian. That is, they're not Chinese, Arab, or Indian. In Malaysia, they are Bumi Putra. But in Indonesia, we refer to them as pribumi. Totok is full blood. Cina. China is the country China. We call Chinese people orang Cina. But there have been other words that have been introduced to make it more polite, perhaps. There's a bit of baggage with how we refer to Chinese people. The new words, and when I say new, in the last few decades, have been Tionghoa for a Chinese person, Tiongkok for the country of China. The Chinese themselves quite often refer to themselves by the English, orang Chinese, they quite often say. So there's a little bit of baggage that goes on with that particular word because of the history of the Chinese in Indonesia. Peranakan, blasteran are mixed-blooded people. Indo is a Eurasian. Kopi susu quite often refers to a Eurasian as well. That is a mixture of coffee and milk. They are very popular. It's not a derogatory term in Indonesia. They find them they love mixed-blooded people. The TV and the movies are full of people of mixed parentage in Indonesia. They're very popular. Kong kali kong is special favors from people in power to people around them. It's corruption between government people and the private sector. Kong kali kong. Chukong is the name of Chinese businessman who conducts business on behalf of Indonesian military personnel, quite often high-ranking people, or anyone actually, but high-ranking people who give them protection. The Javanese consider business to be a grubby affair, but it's not beneath them to have Chinese people do their business on their behalf. They will be protected. It's a very sensitive subject in Indonesia because the Indonesians find it particularly distasteful to think that the people running the country are doing these sweetheart deals with Chinese people, and they themselves are being exploited because of the practice. It was particularly a sensitive issue under Suharto's rule. His Chukong was Lim Swee Leong, and everyone knew it, but you couldn't mutter it or utter it. It was a very, very delicate subject during Suharto's rule. Putus asa is to give up all hope. Putus asa boleh. Jangan putus kolor. You can give up all hope, but don't snap your drawers. Masuk akal, understandable or to make sense. So something that is tidak masuk akal, it's unfathomable, it's hard to understand, it doesn't make sense. Tidak masuk akal. Salah alamat is misdirected, something that's misguided or misdirected. Biar lambat, asal selamat. It's all right to be late so long as you are safe. Enak aja. Enak aja is what we use towards people who it means you don't care about anyone but yourself. You bastard. There's a lot of different, depends on the context, but we say enak aja lu. Lu being you, enak aja lu. It's, you'll hear that very often in Indonesia. It's when someone does something that upsets someone. Is Dutch for uncle and is used as a common form of address for Western men quite often. Tante is the female equivalent, Dutch as well. Buset comes from the English bullshit and means the same. Buset. More examples of the suffix in. That is the suffix in from Javanese when it comes across colloquially into Indonesian. Kerjain, to take advantage of someone or to work someone over. You hear quite often, aku dikerjain. I've been taken advantage of, I've been had. Ketawain. Ketawain, to laugh at somebody at their expense usually. Aku diketawain. I was laughed at, I was made fun of. Main means to play, but it also means to call in somewhere. You hear, main ke rumah yo, come over to my place. Makin, and then makin again, means like more and more, easier to understand with an example. Makin lama, makin bagus. The longer it goes, the better it gets. Makin lama, makin bagus. And that's a very common thing you hear in Indonesian. So, good luck with it all, and until the next update, selamat belajar.